ever considered that we are living in a unique time, that something world-changing is about to happen, and that it might concern you? If so, you're in the right place. Keep listening, and you'll hear thought-provoking views behind the news that point to a new and better future for all. Many people now sense that humanity is not alone. So consider this. If the Christ or the Buddha walked among us today as modern men, would we recognize them? What would they be saying? And most importantly, would we listen? Every Sunday on this program, Share International Radio will examine extraordinary events that are unfolding behind the headline news. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for. And now, welcome to this week's show.
Welcome to the show. My name's Cielito Pascual, podcasting from Seattle, Washington, here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest of the United States. And I do want to thank you for taking the time to tune in and to hear what I believe and my guest believes is a profound message of hope. Please share this link with your friends if you like what you hear. And visit our website, shareontheairradio.org. We're also on Facebook, Share on the Air Radio North America. I want to thank Diana Gold-Holland for helming the show the past month. I have that's the last time I was on the air was August 14th, so I'm glad to be back and really appreciate Diana taking care of things and holding down the fort. So today we have a great show, but I just want to bring any new listeners up to speed very briefly on what this show is about. It is about the emergence of Maitreya the World Teacher and the Masters of Wisdom. And as you heard in the introduction, if you sense that we're living in an extraordinary time, in my mind, you are correct. An extraordinary event is unfolding, and on this show, we explain what is happening, why it's happening, and why it's relevant and important to what is happening in the world today. And we explain what's happening behind the headlines. That's why we like to call the show the thought-provoking views behind the news. So let's get right to the heart of the show. What we're talking about, what we're exploring today, is the illusion of belief in the emergence of Maitreya. And I am happy to welcome back Anne Finneran. She is an artist, an environmental activist. She is a mother and a wife living in upstate New York, and a longtime student of the Ageless Wisdom teachings, as well as a dear friend of mine. And for many years, she has given talks on the central premise of our show about the emergence of Maitreya, the World Teacher, and the Masters of Wisdom. Welcome, Anne. I'm so happy to have you back.
Thank you, Cielito. It's a pleasure for me, too.
You know, the last show we did was way back in March, and the title of that show, that was as thought-provoking as I think our topic today is. That show was Blowing Up the Status Quo 2,000 Years Ago, an Esoteric Perspective on Easter, March 20th. So we have archives on OMTimes Radio. So if you want to, our audience wants to look up past shows, you can hear Anne the March 20th show, 2016. And that was a fun show to do, Anne. So let's start our exploration here. You know, often when we hear a new idea for the first time, especially a radically new idea, I know from my experience, I listen for what I agree with. And I think, I like that idea, and I like that idea. I agree with that. I can believe that. You know, that seems like a reasonable response. Or we evaluate the speaker's background. Do they have the authority or to talk on this subject, or do they have respectable credentials? And, when we figure out the background, we think, oh, that person's important. They must know what they're talking about. So I'm going to agree with what they're saying because they must know. And so we're going to look at the different, what is belief and the ways in which simply believing in something has shortcomings. We're going to talk about the distinction between belief, the distinction between belief and faith, between belief and experience. So why don't you kick us off here, Anne, with your thoughts on what belief means and how is that distinct from, say, experience?
Okay. Well, I think that belief is actually a mental construct around something that we have been exposed to, and that we've found some kind of ring of truth in it, but we wrap it in our own conditioning or the teachings themselves that we hear, and we adhere to those teachings in an attached way. So I think belief entails attachment. And
can you give an example of what you mean when we wrap it in our conditioning and we become attached to a belief?
Well, for instance, any Orthodox religion, if someone is raised in that faith, then they become so conditioned to the teachings that they really can't experience their own experience of the truth of that teaching. And that's kind of what I mean. And so they have difficulty finding their own perspective on it.
And I just want to interject here that we're not criticizing, for many people to believe in what one's family believes in. It's part of tradition. So we're not criticizing tradition. We're simply exploring the ways in which we adopt certain ideas as our own. Do we really examine our beliefs? And I think this day and age, so many beliefs are in upheaval. Things are being dismantled. Ideas are being dismantled and are becoming exposed for questioning and exploration. So, let's talk a little bit more about belief and experience. So let's say someone says, well, my family has always been such and such. My parents believe in such and such, so I'm going to believe it too. How's that distinct from experience?
Well, let's see. Well, let's go with belief in God, for instance. I mean, what does that mean? There's so many levels on that. Someone can say, "Oh yes, I believe in God," but when you get right down to it, and if someone says, "Yes, God is everywhere," you've got this point where you're at an infinitesimally small line between God being everywhere and there being no God. And that's when you get to that point, then I think you get to the point where you can try to define more clearly what your experience is of divinity and how you are tied in with it. So we are all divine, is something someone might say, and someone else might say, no, there's no God. It's like science proves it otherwise, and I don't see any fact in that. And that's when you get into believing as seeing, as versus seeing as believing, where Jesus appeared to Thomas and said, "Here we are. Now you see me, and now all your pals, the other apostles, have told you that I've been here. You're now believing it because you've put your hand in my side, and you've put anyone who's familiar with the gospel story will know that. And that from that came that expression, seeing is believing. But so many people in their lives get to the point that believing is seeing, and they have difficulty seeing other than what they might be able to experience if they weren't wrapped in that belief. And that's how it becomes an illusion, actually.
So we'll touch on that a little more, but I'd love to know about your personal experience. So we're talking about a story that has no proof. The emergence of Maitreya, the eldest brother of humanity, along with his group, the Masters of Wisdom. And for our audience who's new to this, please visit the website share-international.org, and there you'll find a whole comprehensive story on this emergence. So we're exploring the aspect of belief. It's an idea that rings true in certain ways because the major religions of the world all expect the return of a great teacher. Indigenous cultures expect the return of a great teacher, and yet we like to think we're very sophisticated in this day and age of science and reason, and this kind of story doesn't fit in with, as you say, the mental constructs of what we classify as reason and proof. So let's start with your personal experience, and when you first heard the story of Maitreya the World Teacher, how did you hear about it? Oh, and goodness gracious, we hear the break music, so we'll have to leave our audience in suspense and ask them to return after the break to hear more from Ann Finneran on the illusion of belief. Stay with us.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Spiritual, metaphysical, green living, psychic, alternative healing, life coaching. Do any of these or similar terms apply to your business or cause? If so, you are in a niche market with a very specific audience. Conscious Gate PR is the world's leading conscious public relations agency. With a global reach of over 4 million and growing, we offer comprehensive media campaigns to our targeted market. Learn more at ConsciousGatesPR.com. Conscious marketing for conscious minds.
Join Vibe Nation radio host, international psychic medium Carrie Turcotte, as she guides her listeners to rediscover themselves by accessing the keys of knowledge that already exist within. Each week's show is divinely orchestrated to intertwine with the universal energies, allowing the listeners to go deeper within. At the end of each show, Carrie will tap into the energies of the listeners and give a message from Spirit about the upcoming week. If you really want to get to know who you truly are, join Carrie each Monday at 3 p.m. on Vibe Nation Radio.
Want to help build the coming golden age? Want to experience the Aquarian energies of love, light, and power? Transmission meditation is a simple way for you and 2 or more friends to do just that and accelerate your own spiritual growth at the same time. Check out Transmission Meditation at shareontheairradio.org. That's shareontheairradio.org.
I didn't know it would be so hard. It's easier to heal others than to heal myself.
If you or someone you know has a drug or alcohol problem, you are not alone.
Recovery was the hardest job I ever had, and the most important.
For information and treatment referral, call 1-800-662-HELP. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
And we're back on Share on the Air Radio, talking with Ann Finneran on the illusion of belief. And describe for us, Ann, the first time you heard the story of the emergence of Maitreya the World Teacher and the Masters of Wisdom. What did you hear that you that resonated for you? What did you hear that perhaps unnerved you? What was your response, and what action did you take?
Okay. Well, I was, I think, kind of blessed with a series of experiences over the few months leading to my meeting a couple who introduced this information to me. So,
and I'm going to interject here. How did you grow up? What was your religion?
Oh, yeah, I grew up in a fairly Orthodox Catholic home. My father was Catholic and very full of faith. He believed in it, but he was less dogmatic about it. My mother was quite dogmatic and had been raised in the fear of God home type of thing. So I had a little bit of both. I loved the religion. I loved the Christ. I felt inspired by it. And when I grew into young adulthood, I kind of moved away from it, although I maintained a spiritual position, and I actually grew into a place where I considered that reincarnation might very well be a possibility. So I was at that point when I'd had this series of experiences. It was, I don't want to go into detail on them, but it was something that for a period of 4 months or so, each month I would have something that would make me go, huh? What's that about? Something's going on. And then at the end of... It
was a subtle, like, without going into details, it was like a subtle experience or kind of a dream quality or something that was out of the ordinary.
Yeah, one of them was actually a pretty profound dream. Another one was a brief conversation with someone. Another one was like a reading I'd had by someone who told me what was going on in my life. And so all these little things built up to this, so that when I met this couple, and they used the term, the Christ is in the world. That was how they told me. My experience was pretty profound. It was, I would say, direct knowledge. I was overwhelmed to tears. The floodgates opened, and I was just there like, oh, this is what this has been all about. This is what's been going on in my life. And I felt it was true to the depth of my being. But I'm always watching. I'm always experimenting, keeping kind of a scientific experimental mind about things. So I just kind of observed it, but I know it was just very true. And shortly thereafter, I met Benjamin Creme, the chief promulgator of this information.
He's an author
in the world.
He's an author, an esotericist. He's published a dozen and a half books on the topic of the fact that humanity is not alone, that we have the help of the spiritual masters of wisdom.
Right. And so I meditated with him and had further deeper experiences. And then this was in Buffalo, New York, and he was touring the country at this time. It was the end of 1981. And
Mr. Creme. Yeah.
Yes, Benjamin Creme. It was touring. And he was on a television show in Buffalo. And I'm from further upstate originally, within the Buffalo television area. So I watched this interview on Buffalo TV the next day, and it was quite that in and of itself was quite convincing, the way he conveyed the information. And I called my mother after the show was on, and I said, because she was so deeply Catholic, but she had kind of grown into a little more open-mindedness in her old age, and as she approached old age, she's younger than I am now, and I said, Mom, I have something I want to tell you. And she said with utter conviction, I know, the Christ is in the world. And I was kind of taken aback, but also very, very happy that she had had that experience. But part of belief being what it is that she had been raised in an Orthodox Catholic household, and we had many relatives who were actually more than Orthodox in their Catholicism. They were pretty, I would say, fundamentalist about it, and they got wind of this information and kind of turned my mother's mind the other way because of her beliefs as she had been grown to.
You know, that brings up an interesting point, and I just want to clarify for our audience. You use the term Christ, and this information that we share every week on Sunday on this show, Share on the Air Radio, we are non-denominational, and what we recognize from the esoteric perspective is that the terms Christ, the term Buddha, the term Krishna, Imam Mahdi, the Messiah, what we recognize is those are all terms for one and the same being, and that being has been expected by the great world religions, and that being is in the world right now in a very vital daily process of emergence into full public life. And I just want to share my experience. Yes, when I first heard this story, I heard an interview of Mr. Krem on the radio. It was actually probably one of the most disruptive interviews he'd ever done because the host was very rude. But even despite the tone of the show and the controversy, and they were coming head to head, I was able to hear the message, and it resonated for me, and I was very happy to hear it, and it resonated very deeply for me. But when I turned to people whose opinions I trusted and I shared it with them, they looked at me and they said, "How do you know it's not a cult?" Practically in those terms. And it was so unsettling to me that the people I respected did not receive the information with as much positivity, or barely any, as I did, that it could have turned me away from exploring more. But the message of sharing that Mr. Krem got across, sharing as a spiritual principle, sharing as the fundamental principle upon which we must base our economic and political systems, that stayed with me, and I made up my mind that whether or not it's true, I was going to act as if it were true. And if it remained relevant, it would stay in my life. If it was just pretend information, if it was fraudulent, or if it was an illusion or make-believe, it would fall away. And that was, almost 30 years ago.
Right. So you didn't cloak it in belief. And again, yes, at the time, the term Christ was used more frequently, but it was because there are so many Christians in the United States. I think that was how he presented it that way. It's interesting because there's there's something in where these teachings and the teachings in the Bible were originally not intended as to form a new religion. St. Augustine himself said that which is called the Christian religion existed among the ancients and never did not exist from the beginning of the human race until Christ came in the flesh, at which time it began to be called Christianity. So these ideas,
go ahead. I'll let you.
Well, that's really. And the Alice Bailey says that the Christian theologians have attempted to lift it out of its place in the scheme of things, and thereby they destroy its background, remove its foundations, and make it difficult for the steadily developing mind to accept its presentation, as she says. So that's a quote. It's it's interesting that the teachings there are the same as many of the teachings in Hinduism and Buddhism, and so it's
the golden rule, for example, is found in all the great religions.
Right.
Do unto others as you would have them do to you.
So by saying that belief itself is an illusion is not to say that each and every one of these religions does not have its truth to it, and that we should respect each other's beliefs, religion rather. But when belief gets to the point that my belief is better than yours, and we have wars and everything, that's when it starts to become more problematic. So
I think what I heard, we might be going into a break soon, but we'll wait for the music. But I heard in what you read from St. Augustine, and your mentioning of the esoteric author Alice A. Bailey, is that life evolves. We have evolved from the time of Jesus. It's 2,000 years. We've evolved scientifically and technologically, and all of life continuously evolves, growing and expanding in consciousness, and so our belief systems have to evolve along with us. Would you say that that's appropriate?
Absolutely, and it actually refers to. I mean, Jesus says all these things and more that he had done, that you shall do. Which is essentially saying that he was a teacher. He was not here to form a belief of him as God, but because he knew his own divinity better than we did, that was what made him a good teacher. And he said that, what I shall do, you shall do greater. And
go ahead. We have like a few seconds. Go ahead and finish
okay.
your thought.
I heard the music and thought. So, yeah, there's another quote that I can bring up when the thing is over, but it alludes to that we have evolved since that time, and we will continue.
And coming up after the break, we're going to talk about why Maitreya says, I do not want you to believe in me.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
There is no death, only a change of worlds. Chief Seattle. Deborah Livingston is an award-winning intuitive psychic medium whose international services include mediumship, spiritual assessment, animal communication, and spiritual mentoring. She is a published author and a trained shaman. Deborah provides evidential messages from spirit and departed loved ones. Learn more at deblivemedium.com. That's DEBLIV medium.com.
Have you bought into the idea that you have to work hard for your money, that business is hard? I will share some dynamic access consciousness tools to get you out of your own way so you can create a business that actually succeeds. Join me, Simone Millicers, on The Joy of Business at 4 p.m. Mondays Eastern.
Want to help humanity and the planet? Transmission meditation is a simple but powerful way for you and 2 or more friends to do just that and dramatically accelerate your own spiritual growth. You can read the book on transmission meditation, free online. Visit shareontheairradio.org for details. That's shareontheairradio.org. shareontheairradio.org.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit RAIN.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
And we're back on Share on the Air Radio. And Finneran, our guest, we're talking about the illusion of belief and the emergence of Maitreya. I'll just bring this up really quickly. Back when I first heard this story, and I'm sure when you first heard the story, we didn't have the internet.
That's right.
And I just want to acknowledge something here because our listeners, I'm sure, who are very curious, will be going onto the internet and they will Google. And what wasn't there, what I didn't see when I first heard this story was all the negative information that people have put together regarding this information on Maitreya. And so that enters in, we touched on this earlier, turning to other people for their opinions on whether something is valid or not, rather than looking into our own heart, our own experience, trusting our own ability to know what is true for us. Would you like to expound on that? I have a question from a friend who's listening. At what point, I think it dovetails into this point we're bringing up. At what point does one choose what to consciously choose? To stand upon and grow from. At what point does one choose what to consciously choose?
At what point does one choose what to consciously choose? Well, that presupposes that one is in a position to be fully aware of what it is they are choosing. And there are so many different levels. There's their belief structure, there's their conditioning, their emotional state, their evolutionary level, if they are more or less enlightened. So it depends on who you are and where you are in life for you to make such choices, I would think.
And I think what I've learned in my in recent times is that it does, on the one hand, trusting my own ability to determine what I choose, but also not making that choice in isolation, if that makes any sense. But let's. There's so much to talk about. We could explore so much, but let's get to Maitreya's teaching, who says, this is. Let me find the quote. Maitreya says, "I do not want you to believe in me. First, experience me within you. When you experience me, then you become aware of my presence within you. It is not a matter of belief first. I do not want you to accept or reject me. It is your inner experience which counts."
Right.
Inner experience. Let's expound on what it means to have an inner experience.
Well, you know your own inner experience. Your experience is your own personal blessing, really. You have experiences follow from being honest with yourself, being sincere, and detachment. So you know that what you are experiencing is true. I'm actually looking for the one passage. So,
one thing I want to bring up as you're looking there is that throughout millennia, humans, we see this in myths and legends and religious traditions, that humans have an expectation of a coming golden age. There's an expectation of getting to a next level of awareness. There's an expectation to believe in a reunion with a greater intelligence, which is what our story follows along those lines. What distinction do you see between the information about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom that is why do you find it so relevant to today?
Well, I think that this particular information is follows on the history of all these various teachers that have come in the past. And so we all have heard these histories of various teachers, the Krishna, Buddha, the Christ, Jesus, Muhammad, and these all follow on that. This particular story follows on that history, which is an actual history. So much of humanity does expect that teachers will come. A lot of humanity also thinks that we don't need teachers. We are the teachers that we need to see ourselves into the future. And I think that position is laudable. I think it's very good that we have come to recognize that we carry some responsibility in the changes that we need to make, that we need to accomplish to see the world forward. But I think that it also is very valuable to consider that we are not at that place of recognizing our divinity as much as these teachers in the past have, and to know that these teachers are still present and are ready to help advise us is a tremendous thing, and should bring people hope and comfort that we are not in this alone, that there are these enlightened individuals who work always behind the scenes. So that one description, he says, if you feel you're alone in a room and you feel this.
This is from Maitreya. You're saying
this is from Maitreya. Yeah, that is, you're experiencing that aspect, that divinity in yourself and around you, and you know that is part of you and part of all of us.
I think I cut you off in the beginning there, but you were describing if you feel a presence around you.
That is you are experiencing that which Maitreya calls the self, and calls what we all have within us. We are all have equal divinity. One of the things he says is, I don't want people to worship me or look up to me. I consider us all equal. But as an adult takes care of a child, so these teachers are that much more experienced in understanding of not only divinity, but of how science and the energy works.
And also, I mean, that's a whole realm as well, the energetic aspect of Maitreya's emergence. And we have past shows on that. I'll share the date in a moment. Understanding the planetary and cosmic energies behind Maitreya's emergence. That's from April 24th. And my guest at the time was Cindy Bruder. But that's also another show, Divided, Charting the Effects of the Sword of Cleavage in World Events. That's from July 3rd. That's a fantastic show in understanding the energetic impacts of this emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. And my guest on that show, July 3rd, was William James Allen. One thing I wanted to point out, too, something that we don't think about is our interrelationship as the human kingdom, our interrelationship with the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the mineral kingdom. But not only that, not only in the material world, but our interrelationship with the spiritual kingdom. And the spiritual kingdom evolved out of the human kingdom, just as the human kingdom evolved out of the animal kingdom. So we generated these masters of wisdom. They are not coming from somewhere else. They have lived and sorrowed and experienced every emotion, joy, trial, triumph that any human could ever endure and experience. And by dint of that, by dint of hundreds of thousands of lifetimes that we live and die through, known as reincarnation, these masters of wisdom, including Maitreya, who is part of that group, they have evolved out of the human kingdom to become these advanced teachers, and we are on that path as well. So they're not just here to tell us what to do. They're not here. In fact, they're not here to tell us what to do, but to
advise.
To what?
Advise and teach.
To advise and teach, and for us to awaken to the fact of our interrelationship with them. When you do your public talks, Anne, when you talk about the story of the emergence of Maitreya, do you present it as a fact or a philosophy?
Well, I present it I kind of not quite either. It's as a some information that I have come upon that I think should be considered by others. So it's to me, because of my early experiences and because of the profound information about social justice and sharing and the environment and the teachings about those things that have come through, I present it as, I guess it's closer to fact from where I am coming from, but I would never impose that on someone as something that they need to consider as a fact. It kind of ties in with what I think is the difference between belief and faith, which is that belief, you're adhering to it and it becomes something that people will impose on others, but faith is something that you consider and act upon as if it is true, because in your heart you think it is, but you're remaining open and detached.
And we will come back after the break. Thank you, Anne. We'll continue our conversation on the illusion of belief.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hi, I'm Kelly Fox, host and astrologer of The Astrology Show. Each week, I'll give you access to the current transits, which are a valuable tool that provide astrological information to help unlock the potential each of us has. Understanding the stars can help steer us in the right direction to make better informed choices. So if you're wondering what's going to happen in your week ahead, be sure to tune in to The Astrology Show for guidance, Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
Share International magazine is unique in the world today. It draws connections that make sense between headline news and spiritual changes unfolding now on a global scale, and explains the forces driving those changes. It may be the message of hope you have been waiting for. Investigate for yourself at shareontheairradio.org. That's shareontheairradio.org. Shareontheairradio.org.
Hi, this is Carly Simon for LifeBeat. The music industry fights AIDS. The AIDS crisis isn't over. There have been amazing scientific breakthroughs, but people are still dying, and your local AIDS organization needs your help more now than ever. Volunteer and make a difference.
And we're in our final segment in our conversation with Ann Finneran on the illusion of belief. Share on the Air Radio. My name is Cielito Pascual. And for our listeners, Share Internet. We base our information on the information coming out of Share International, which publishes Share International magazine. And one can secure that with a subscription for the print copy. It's a magazine that's released every month for 10 months out of the year. Or you can read the digest of highlights online at share-international.org. That's Share International magazine. And next week, we will explore the awakening of the heart of humanity and the emergence of Maitreya with healer and acupuncturist Drew Henderson, who is based in Boulder, Colorado. So tune in next Sunday at the top of the hour, which is 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern, to continue to hear more explorations on the topic of this, what people call the greatest story of all time. And it's not just a story, as you know, Anne. This is all leading up to a very significant event. This is an unfolding event, the emergence of Maitreya, and it's leading up to what's called the Day of Declaration. Can you explain what that is?
Yes, well, I'll try. It's a planned day somewhere on Maitreya's nebulous calendar, because for the Masters, time does not really exist. It's more the moment of opportunity when he will find that humanity's heart is open enough to each other, when we have started sharing and established that within the world. He will arrange to be on television before the whole world. It will be on satellite, and he will present himself to the world in a way that he will be unmistakably recognized as the world teacher. And he will, I have my own perspective on how that might happen, where he will be there and everyone will hear him in their own voices. I'm wondering if it won't be through images. And he will convey
in their own language?
In their own language, yeah, not their own, well, thank you, their own language. And at the same time, there will be miraculous healings and other miraculous events going on in the world. And it will be, there were a couple of precursors to that. One of them was a little test was when the Princess Diana died. There was just an opening of the heart. Everyone in the world was like so dumbfounded by it, and became more gentle, it seemed, for a few days, because she had been such a sweet, giving person. So
she was called the People's Princess, and she was considered more down to earth, more connected to the people, more concerned with people's issues than any of the British royalty were. She was a bit of a revolutionary in that sense.
I think there's a little bit of it going on just always with the Occupy movement. People felt this unity. So there will be something
But to go
like
back
that.
To Princess Diana, I just wanted to, for our audience, clarify. There was a release of energy, wasn't there, at the time of her?
Technically there was a release of energy, and
from Maitreya.
That was kind of a rehearsal for what might happen, so that
on the Day of Declaration.
On the Day of Declaration, thank you.
And also on 9/11, there was a release of energy from Maitreya, which I was evident to me in New York City. And it was reported in the papers how there was less honking, people were more polite. I saw it myself, just in my interactions with strangers at the shopping malls.
Yeah.
if those of you sensitive to energies, maybe you can think back to those times and recall, a shift. But also on the day of declaration, it's very purposeful. This isn't just a fanciful thing where people will feel good. Maitreya will present a choice to humanity.
Yeah, the choice is whether we do continue to share or whether we are being presented with two choices. One is to proceed with the greed and the separation of the rich and poor and the degradation of the environment. That is all on one side of what he calls his sword of cleavage, and on the other side is where we will share. We will realize our oneness. We will realize we are all in this boat together, and we have to work on getting this all together and repair the world and proceed into what can be a really glorious future with so many promises in the world and so many things that are happening that we can work with to move forward.
And the first thing that if we choose to make those changes, our first job would be to abolish hunger, because that's the first evidence of inequality. People going without in a world of plenty. I want to say, this day of declaration, it will be via satellite. The media actually knows about this, probably leading figures in the media who are now retired, because Maitreya had met with the BBC. We talked about this on our show. This was, I'm just looking at it. What was the date on this? What the media knows and isn't telling us about the emergence of Maitreya, the World Teacher, and the Masters of Wisdom. And that show aired April 10th. You can find that in the archives on OMTimes Radio. William James Allen guested on that program. It's very fascinating. So, we're talking about this day of declaration. It's something we're moving towards as humanity. Let me ask you this, Anne. If one doesn't know about Maitreya, will they see him on the day of declaration? What do you think their experience will be if they don't know about this? If they don't know that he's the Christ, Buddha, Maitreya, do you have to at least know who he is to have an experience of him?
Well, I don't think so. In fact, I think everyone will have access to the televised event, and if they don't know that it's going on, I'm sure with Twitter and Facebook and all the social media, they will know something profound is going on the television. Turn on the TV, you got to see what this guy's doing or something. So, but I think those that do not know about him might actually have a leg up in a certain respect, because he says, I do not want you to believe in me. First, experience me within you. When you experience me, then you will become aware of my presence within you. It is not a matter of belief first. So in the same way, it might not be a matter of being familiar with the information first. It may just hit them in the heart directly and be a direct experience, which is kind of what happened to me in the first place. So I think that, yes, they will. And if they are in a place that does not have television or anything, I still think that healings and just some shift in understanding must happen, because after all, this will be a worldwide event, and we are all linked, whether we want to acknowledge that or not.
And we will be sharing a very profound experience as humanity on this day of declaration, where Absolutely. Maitreya will awaken in us, literally reawaken in us our divinity. And my understanding is that will be a very tangible experience. And apparently we will be walking on tiptoe for a number of days. from this profound experience, and then we will realize that we will need to get to work on remaking our world to be more just, to be more fair, to abolish hunger, and to provide the basic human needs that every human being breathing the free air of Earth needs to uphold their human dignity. And that's something that anyone on this planet, at the very least, deserves 3 full meals, safe shelter, education, health care, the sense of feeling safe in their community. It will be an extraordinary experience, and we will have a lot of work to do, but I think we are up to it as humanity. Did you want to read something?
I did a little bit. I just wanted to say that he does not want you to accept or reject him. It is your inner experience that counts. It's your experience, is your wealth, the richness of your own being. The living truth is a matter of experience. And whether or not people believe this information or not, to follow those precepts of social justice is to follow the teachings of Maitreya.
Excellent point. Anne, thank you so much for joining us, taking the time. Thanks to our audience listening in, to our audience member who sent the question. I hope this provides a lot of thought-provoking ideas for you for the week, and we will see you next week here on OMTimes Radio. Thank you so much.